This exhibition with Adrian Lockhart. Adrian has been highly recommended by Joe Eisenberg to have an exhibition in our gallery. And Adrian's work is fantastic. So, but again, because we have quite a lot of exhibitions which are lined up over the years and they postponed. So again, it's not until now that we have an exhibition with Adrian, although he had also shown in our end of year group exhibition. So today you have two artists having solo exhibition for the first time in our gallery. And I think they do work quite well together. Adrian's work, he's quite diverse. He does sculptures, he does paintings, but even with paintings, he does figurative work, but also abstract work. So for this exhibition, I suggested to him that in order to have the exhibition together with Acura, it may be a good idea to show a body of abstract work, which he does really well, but then he managed to incorporate some figurative work in his abstract, go figures. So they all studies of human sort of figures in a way. And Joe doesn't need any introduction. He's been a huge supporter of the arts. He's been involved in the art world for the last 40 years. He's emeritus cultural director, is that the term? Yeah, okay. Of Maitland Regional Gallery, and all my artists love him. I said to Joe, maybe you come here every time, to open the exhibition you book for the rest of the year. So I'd like you to put your hand together and welcome Joe Eisenberg.
Thanks, Simon. I'd also like to acknowledge the Gadigal and Biddigal people, the land on which this gallery stands. And if nothing else, I presume that they made art on this land, and that's why we're all going to vote yes when we take it. And if you don't, you're not welcome here. It's very simple. You just tick the yes, just to remind you if you forget. Thank you, Simon. I feel like I own 10% of this gallery, so 10% of the takings is, you can work it out. I'm quite amazed how this gallery looks at the moment. It's not because I know Adrian and I met Acura today for the first time, but the gallery really does look absolutely beautiful. And I know it's a horrible probably thing to say, but it's one of the best times that I've seen the gallery look the way that it looks today. It really looks really, really amazing. The two shows, when you first said that you were doing it, I thought, this is strange. But I walked into, I'm honest, you know me, Simon. But when I walked in today, it really was quite amazing. I've known this guy for a very, very long time. Some of you might remember Stephen Hesketh from Tamarisk Enterprises, who's no longer with us, sadly. One day I went into his place, once again begging for money for the New England Regional Art Museum, one of the galleries that I was working for. And he introduced me to this guy and said, he's important, he's a good artist. Well, I thought after a little while that he was a good artist, and I exhibited him both in Armidale and in Maitland. I've supported him, I've written about him. He has helped me over the years in all the sort of exercises and crazy, as Jenna said, all the crazy ideas that I came up with. And Adrian always supported me, and that's why I've always supported him also. And I think what you see behind me, apart from working so well with Acura, it really is quite amazing how this is called lines, and the whole gallery really is about lines. And so I wrote down took down just a few quotes quickly at random, and I guess everybody knows Paul Clay's a line is a dot that went for a walk. Everybody knows that. But then there's the other one that Paul Kay said, an active line is a walk. When I talk, the phones are turned off. So if your phone is on, turn it off, please. That's what they always say in the movies, anyway. The other one that Clay said was, an active line is on a walk, moving freely, without a goal, a walk for a walk's sake. Henri Matisse, a line cannot exist alone. It always brings a companion along. Just look around you. Cy Twombly, my line is childish, but not childlike. And Jean-Michel Basquiat, every single line means something. Adrian started in Tasmania many, many years ago. Not that many, many years ago. Only, I'll take 1 many out of the way. Many, many years ago. And he started drawing and sketching as quite a young guy. And then he went on and did some work in a printing press for the newspaper, whatever it was called.
An Examiner.
Launceston Examiner. Then he came to Sydney and he worked for a graphic artist as a graphic art director. Oh God, it's really important. It's really important. But he did all these sort of things. But throughout all this time, he drew and he drew and he drew. And when you go with Adrian, he draws and he takes photographs. So when we, not so long ago, went to Tassie with him, Janice and I and Karen and Adrian, I've got a photograph. We were running a bit late, we were in the hotel, and I took a photograph from the second floor window while Adrian and Karen were downstairs waiting for us. And there was Adrian just waiting for, I don't know, we were a few minutes late. There he was with his sketchbook, and he was just sketching, just waiting for a few minutes because we were running late. He was sketching. And another day we were driving somewhere outside Canberra where we live, and so Karen drove, I drove, Janice drove, and Adrian was in the back seat of the car all the time taking photographs while the rest of us were driving. So all he does all the time is take sketches or draws lines. But lines are not just about lines, they're about forms and about shapes. And that's what you see all around. We're a bit in the way, but you can see forms and lines and shapes. And that's what Adrian has always been about. And sometimes he keeps them separately, as you can see, and sometimes he puts them together, he joins them. And I don't think it matters to him which one he does. And I think, as Simon said, he took the words right out of what I was going to say, is that Adrian throws himself between the right and the left and the centre, and he works on one or the other, and it really doesn't matter. But it all starts with all those little quotes that I said earlier, with that magic thing called the line. And Akira's work is really all about lines, except he tends to keep it in a sculptural form because, as we were told, he's a cheapskate. I didn't make it up, that's what we were told. So he obviously doesn't have a pencil or a pen, and so he picks it up and puts the line down in his own format. Adrian, I'm told, and I've seen quite a few of them, has over something like 100, 200, 300 sketchbooks.
Getting up to 400 sketchbooks.
Getting up to 400 sketchbooks. I don't know how many photographs he has. He's got ADND and HDDD and UDDD and IDDD and all the DDs put together because his hands can't stand still. He's just got to do something with his hands, and eventually they end up usually on canvas after they've been through a photograph or on paper. They end up on what we see here behind me. In form and in shape, I guess if you look at the shapes that are here and ones that he's done earlier, a lot of people have compared him to the shapes that Paul Cézanne played with the fruit, the apples, and the shapes of the containers that those apples and other fruit were in. And they're about volume and nature, femininity, joy, fertility, and women's beauty. And yes, they also have that sort of sexual intent. And if you look around you, you see that sexual intent not only in the shape of the line, but also in the forms that are next to the lines. Adrian has that way of putting it in both the forms of the line and the forms of the forms themselves. And then thirdly, there's the light. Apart from the line and the form, there's the light. As Ruskin said, light is not what it reveals, it is the revelation. As Paul Gauguin said, I shut my eyes in order to see. Matisse again said, look at life with the eyes of a child. And Truett said, a line is never finished. And Georgia O'Keeffe said, I found I could say anything with shapes. And finally, Frida Kahlo said, anything I know is that I paint because I need to. And that's what Adrian actually does. He just paints because he needs to. And I don't know that I can say much more about Adrian. It's on the wall. And like I said about Akira's work, every so often these guys and goddesses come here, put their stuff on the wall or on the floor, and they do something that the rest of us that are not artists do, and I don't know how they do it. They get their bodies and they go boom, and they open their hearts out and their souls to us, the rest of us that are not artists, and show themselves to us. I don't know how they do it. I certainly can't do it. It's easy to stand here and just talk, drivel at the rest of you, and can go on for hours. I can keep talking if you want. No, enough. Simon and Janice said enough, so I'll stop. But this is what artists do, and that's what Akira and Adrian have done today. They've opened themselves to the rest of us with what they've done over the last weeks, the last months, the last years, and say, look at me, this is what I've done, this is what I can do. I'm showing myself and my skills and my abilities to you, and I want you to take part in what I've created. And this is what they have done today. And I really tips my hat at them and thank them for allowing us to be part of what they do, what they create, and what they allow us to take part in. So thank you, Adrian. What's your name? Bill, it's fine, anytime. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
I hope you have a great selling exhibition from both these guys. They both deserve to do well. And I thank you for allowing me to open the exhibition.
Thank you. We get Adrian to say a few words.
Really?
Look, I think, hello, I think Joe has said it all. There's not a lot more I could really say.
Tell us about your book.
Well,
I didn't say about the book.
tell me more about the books.
No. There's one thing that I wanted, that I did really want to say, that I really did want to say. There is something that I would like to add. In his book, Umberto Eco, in his book on the history of beauty, talked about the post-Renaissance man, or person, let's say. He talked about man, but let's talk about post-Renaissance man or woman. And he talked about, in that book, about that person having to have everything from starting with symbolism, going on into beauty, going on to into mechanics, going on to material, going on to media, going into photography. And you've got all those things.
I've done it all.
You've done all those things.
Thank you, Joe. Look, thanks very much for those words, Joe. I don't know what I can say after all that. I think you've said it all. But when you mentioned the books, it sort of reminds me, I got into an awful lot of trouble with making marks on and lines on walls and scribbling on every book in the house as a little toddler. And my poor mum was so frustrated with me that every time she had a special notebook. Every week she'd write out her shopping list, and every time it was full of my scribbles. So I got into a lot of trouble, and it's kind of nice today to have my works on the wall and my books full of my scribbles, and having someone like Simon support me to be able to show what I've been doing. So I'm very pleased that you've said some great words, and thank you, Simon, for allowing me to present my work, because you spend all that time in the studio doing the work, and it's not till you share it with everyone on the wall that it actually comes together and you get reaction. Whether they like it or not, it doesn't matter. It's that reaction, and it makes it complete. So thank you very much, Simon. Thank you, Joe. So thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you, Adrian. So continue to enjoy the exhibition, have a chat to Joe, to Adrian, to Akira, to Terry, and if you're interested in any of the work, come and talk to me. Thank you.